Good morning, and thank you for joining. Continue.
Start over.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for bringing the zoo.
Sorry.
Bringing the zoo to you, Rhino Edition. I am Dana, and I am the lead animal care specialist here at the Pachyderm Building. Behind us, we have King. He is one of 3 rhinos that we have here at the zoo. He is a black rhino. He is 7 years old, and he was born at the Lincoln Park Zoo. Like I mentioned, we have 3 black rhinos here. King is one of them. The other 2 are our other male, Nikili, who turned 30 in February, and our female, Layla, who will be 7 in October. King is a black rhino, which is a rhino species that is found in South and Eastern Africa. There is another rhino species found in Africa called the white rhino. There are 3 other species of rhino found in Asia: the Javan, the Sumatran, and the greater one-horned rhino. The difference between the 2 African species of rhino is in size and in the kinds of food that they eat. So in the wild, the black rhino is a browser, which means that they would eat off of trees or shrubs, and they would use that long pointy lip that you just saw there to grab the branches and the leaves to strip the leaves and the bark off. King loves watermelon. The white rhino, on the other hand, is a grazer, and their lip is flat, so they would be down on the ground eating the grasses. I mentioned that another difference is their size. The black rhino is the smaller of the African species, weighing somewhere between 1,800 and 3,000 pounds, and King is just about that. He's right around 3,000 pounds. The black rhino has a smaller head and neck hump, and that is because, again, like I mentioned, they are a browser, so they don't need quite as much neck strength as the white rhino, which would have their head down on the ground more often. The white rhino, on the other hand, can weigh up to like 5,000 pounds, so they are massive. Not that this isn't massive, but
They're massiver.
they're massiver. The black rhino, up until very recently, was thought to be primarily solitary. There has been recent evidence, though, that black rhinos can kind of have a little bit of sociality. Oh my gosh, that face is so cute. I think I mentioned this when we did Nikili's Facebook Live, but the BBC recently got some footage of black rhinos congregating at a water hole. So that was pretty cool to see that rhinos aren't always by themselves. Black rhinos can live anywhere between 30 and 40 years, a little bit longer in managed care because they have no predators here. They have excellent veterinary care and obviously excellent keeper care from people like myself.
So what predators would they have in the wild?
Actually, rhinos in the wild have very few natural predators. Like any large animal, if they're sick or they're old or they're young, when they're a little bit more vulnerable, they would be taken down by the common African predators like lions. But their biggest predator is humans, unfortunately. You see those great horns on his face. They are poached for their horns. That's often used in Eastern medicine. Unfortunately, that's too bad. Their horns are made of keratin, just like your nails and fingernails. So, maybe just cut some fingernails instead.
How fast can rhinos run? And what distance can they run?
So they're actually pretty fast for how big they are. They can run like right around 30, 40 miles an hour. It wouldn't necessarily be for sustained distances, but for short bursts of speed, they can run pretty fast. They're actually pretty maneuverable too. So not only are they quick, but they can move quickly around things.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the big mud hole next to him?
Oh yeah. So that is a wallow, and you can kind of see it on him now. He's got a nice layer of mud on him. Rhinos will wallow for many reasons. One is to cool off. Another is it helps with, it almost acts like a sunscreen because it puts that extra kind of layer on their skin. And it also acts as like a bug repellent, bug protectant. So a happy rhino is a rhino that's wallowing for sure.
Do you want to talk a little bit about their senses? Like, what are their best senses,
Sure.
their weakest senses?
The rhino's best sense is their sense of hearing. When he was up closer, and even now you can kind of see that he's moving his ears over here, listening to me talking. Now he's listening to maybe some of the construction that's happening over there. Their sense of smell is also very good. They will smell other rhinos' scent markings from their urine or their defecation to find out where other rhinos are. Like I mentioned before, they're primarily solitary, so when they scent mark, it's a good way for them to figure out where other animals are. Their weakest sense is their sense of sight. So they can, right now he can probably see you and I, but not very well. It's thought that probably up to around 100 feet is as far as they can see well. So they do not have an excellent sense of sight.
What kinds of things do they eat?
So rhinos are vegetarian. They're one of the largest land vegetarians out there, behind the hippo and the elephant. Like I mentioned before, the black rhino, which is what King is a browser, so he eats primarily leaves and brush items in the wild. Here at Brookfield Zoo, we feed an herbivore grain, and actually it's a grain specifically meant for rhinos, as well as 2 different kinds of hay, and then we get different fruits and veggies and greens every day from our commissary.
Can they swim?
Can they swim? In pretty shallow water, they could get themselves out, but they're not aquatic mammals.
Do you want to talk a little bit about their feet?
So they are odd-toed ungulates. You can see that they have 3 toes on each of their feet. So they're closely related to horses and tapirs. And they have really big, squishy feet. So the bottom of his foot, the front has nails, which we look at regularly to make sure that they don't need any attention, which they rarely do. You know, having a nice big yard like this, and even their indoor space with some of the hard edges helps keep their nails trimmed and in good condition. And then the bottom of their foot is like a big squishy pad, so it just helps to distribute all that weight on each of those limbs.
Can you remind us what his name is and how old he is?
Yes, this is King, and he is going to be 7 years old in August.
What kind of training do you do with the rhinos?
We do positive reinforcement training with the rhinos. Because they are a large, dangerous animal, we have to work in protected contact with them, which means we always have a barrier in between the rhino and us, so we are never in the same space. But we interact with them every day and do training for husbandry purposes. So we do blood draw training with them so that we can have them, our veterinary staff can come over and draw blood from their front limbs just while they stand there, and we reinforce them with treats. We also train them to get their yearly vaccinations, so they'll get shots in their shoulders, again from our veterinary staff, while we just reinforce them. They're trained to go step on a scale so we can get weights on them and monitor their overall health with weight and body condition, and adjust their diets as needed. If necessary, we could train them to do a lot of things, and depending on the animal, it depends on kind of how much we need to train. So I mentioned Layla earlier. She's our female rhino who's going to be 10 this year. A couple years ago, she came up with a pretty extensive mass in her sinuses. Feel free to check out Dr. Mike's video blogs and our website with a lot of the information on some of the great things that we've done with this rhino. But we had her trained to open her mouth so we could shoot water in it, to clean different areas on her face, to take radiographs of her head or x-rays of her head just while she was standing there. Lots. The rhinos are very smart, and they really like to interact with their animal care staff, so we have a great relationship with them.
So I want to back up just a little bit. You were talking about how they're trained to receive vaccinations.
Yes.
How thick is a rhino's skin?
It's very thick. So the name of this building is pachyderm, which means thick skin. When it was built in, the 30s, it was elephants and rhinos and all sorts of things. So we still have pygmy hippos and rhinos here. And their skin is thought to be like at least 2 fingers deep, thick. So it's pretty thick. So it's pretty difficult to get needles through it. But our veterinary staff is well trained, and so are our rhinos.
How long do their horns get?
The length of the horn kind of just depends on the rhino and where they live. Each rhino is, has a different way they like to keep their horns, just like you or I. I prefer, looks like you do too, short fingernails. And it depends on, just the environment they're in. So if they have a lot of rocks that they can rub on, or if they have mainly trees, they may not be able to kind of hone their horn. So it just depends on where they live. Generally, they think that male rhino horns are thicker and sometimes longer. On the black rhino that has 2 horns, that front horn is always longer than the back horn.
Do you have to brush their teeth?
We do not have to brush their teeth. We have found recently in the past, decade or so, that the best thing for rhino teeth health is to provide them with browse, which is just cut branches with or without leaves. And I think I've mentioned this before, and I think they might have mentioned it when they talked about giraffes. But we have a great relationship with ComEd, where they donate all of their trimmings from, around electrical lines and all of that to the zoo, both in the winter and in the summer. And they know which species of tree are appropriate for our animals to have, that are non-toxic, that have not been sprayed with pesticides and are safe for them and what they're going to enjoy. So they've found that that's just the best toothbrushing for a rhino. I did mention that we could get Layla to open her mouth real wide, and we could shoot kind of like a water pick in there. And that's kind of thought to be the next best thing, because the area of the rhino's mouth where they're going to have the most difficulty getting to, or where we've seen in the past that they might have any issues, is very, very far in the back. And because of the way a rhino's musculature is on their face and around their jaw, Layla can open her mouth surprisingly wide, but we haven't really seen that with either of our boys. So again, the browse is just really the best thing for them.
So what rhinos do we have here at Brookfield Zoo? What are their names? How old are they?
Okay, so we have black rhinos here at Brookfield Zoo, and we have 3. The one in front of us, again, is King, and he'll be 7 this year. And then we also have our other male, Nikili, who is 30, and our female, Layla, who's going to be 10.
And can you just tell us really quickly how Layla's doing?
Layla is doing great. We actually looked at her under anesthesia yesterday, and everything is going along as we're hoping. The next time you're here, we can't wait to see you, and Layla can't either. She'll be outside. She's enjoying the wallows and weather today, just like King is. She's on the other side of those rocks behind him, actually.
Yeah, I passed her on my way here, and she was just covered in mud. I was like,
yeah.
You wasted no time in getting in that wallow today.
Yeah, she's doing well. We're very, very happy with her progress and happy with everything that we've accomplished with her.
What would you say a rhino's favorite treat is?
Like most of the animals here, I would say that any food item, especially fruit, tends to be their favorite treat. You saw King at the beginning enjoying a nice big watermelon. Watermelon tends to be Rhino's favorite in general, but our Rhinos actually really like to be like rubbed down, to have tactile with their animal care staff. So just like getting a nice rub on their face or on their legs or on their back, they really seem to enjoy that.
What other types of enrichment do they get?
So Rhinos are difficult to enrich just because of their size and strength, so it has to be super durable. They enjoy different food presentations, so if you hang up their hay, if you think about it, they're a browser, so it's a very natural way for them to eat. So we have big, huge barrels, like 55-gallon drums that you can put big holes in, and they like to eat their hay out of those. Any kind of slow feeder, if you think about some of the things that your dogs might have, they have those little things that look like grass almost, and you can put your dog's chow in that. We can do that with a Rhino, just on a bigger, more sturdy scale, like a big cylinder that has holes in it that they have to bump around to knock the grain out or treats out.
How many babies do they have at once?
They only have one baby at a time. They have a very long gestation, so the females are pregnant for about 16 months, and then they only have one baby. That baby weighs about 100 pounds when it's born, and it usually weans and leaves its mother around 2 years of age, which is about when the mother's ready to have another calf. So there are not very many rhinos left in the wild. There's around 5,500 of the black rhino. And, the issue is the poaching, but then the fact that the rhinos can't reproduce at a fast rate. So for many of the large animals, once you start introducing poaching or any habitat encroachment or anything like that, they have a hard time recovering because they just can't make babies fast enough.
Are they related to elephants?
No. I mean, way, way, way far down the line.
So what are their closest living relatives?
They're more closely related to like a horse or a tapir.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the work we do with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service with the horn?
Yeah, so we, anytime we may do trimmings on the rhino horn, for some of the stuff we had to do with Layla, we had to trim a little bit of her horn off. We are able to donate that to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to use for their dogs for tracking, for any illegal trafficking of, you're going to see some marking here maybe. No, maybe not, psych me out. Illegal trafficking of the rhino horn, which I mentioned earlier, is a big problem for the rhinos since they're poached for that and then it's sold on the black market.
And we do have a video that we did a couple years ago on YouTube showing how the dogs search for the horns in the shipping areas.
Check that out.
So yeah, we'll post that in the comments after this.
That'd be great.
Let me see, what else do we have here? Do they eat grass?
No, not really. So when you see him bending down and kind of foraging around, I threw some treats out there for him, and he's still kind of picking up little pieces of the watermelon that are left. Yeah, he doesn't really eat the grass. That'd be nice, then we wouldn't have to cut it. But
do you have to mow the lawn?
We do have to mow the lawn.
I saw someone out the other day pushing a lawnmower.
Oh, now he's eating grass. Really? God. And I'm a liar. Don't trust me.
Oh my goodness.
Come on.
Let's see. So if you see the rhinos inside the building,
yes,
there are signs that tell you to stay back.
That's true. Because like I mentioned earlier, they do use urine and their poop to scent mark, which means like to leave a scent for other animals so that they know that it's that rhino's territory. So depending on the animal, again, depends on where they scent mark and spaces they like. Our other two animals you don't really have to worry too much about, but King, he does spray out onto the public floor, so you do need to be mindful when you're coming and visiting King inside next time. They can shoot their urine pretty far, and they'll mark on rocks and trees. So if you're out in Africa, a good way to know if a rhino's around, one is a big pile of poo, but also if there's like a lot of whitewash on rocks and stuff.
Have you ever been sprayed by a rhino?
I have not. Am I lying? I have been very close because, again, King, he's housed right by a door where it's a high traffic area for us. So if you're, just coming through the door and not paying attention, you could get caught. And we also have a area inside where one of our shift doors is just mesh. So if you're servicing on one side or the other and, again, not paying attention, pee on you.
What do they feel like?
So in the summertime, when they have a lot of mud on them, they're very rough because the mud is like caked on there. So
sorry, we just had a truck go by.
Yeah. Telling them don't chip any branches right now. Yeah, so they're really rough, and if you need a good manicure, to start your day, rubbing a rhino is a good way to do it. But their skin, like if they're clean, if we've just hosed them off and given them a bath, I don't know, it's just, it's rough too, but not as rough as when they have all the mud on it.
Oh, he's so excited.
It's fun to watch a rhino run when they lift their tail up like that. Oh,
he's prancing.
3,000 pounds of scaredy cat. That's what a rhino is.
So do they prefer warm temperatures?
So like I mentioned earlier, this species of rhino is found in South and Eastern Africa, where yes, it would be warmer. But they are pretty cold tolerant. So they can come outside with access to the indoor area all the way down to freezing. I have yet to see a rhino in the snow, even though I've worked here for 5 years, 6 years. But it can be done.
Let's see. What's your favorite fact about a rhino?
My favorite fact about a rhino, I don't know. I just think that their adaptation with their lips, the black rhino in particular, I like that. And then the difference between the black and white, people will be like, oh, is it because of their skin coloration? Because right now you look at him, he looks like a gray rhino. And if we had a white rhino to show you next to him, it'd look like a gray rhino as well. So that difference is not because of the skin coloration, but because of possibly a misinterpretation of just the words used to describe their lips. So the white rhino, like I said earlier, has a big wide lip, which people may have misconstrued as white, wide to white. So that's another fact, I guess, that's kind of fun.
All right. You want to wrap up?
Yes. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us today and visiting with King and I. If you haven't already, please be sure to check out our website and consider adopting an animal in our Share the Care program. And I just want to thank you for your continued support through this time. Have a great day.